Hi, guys, and welcome back to Our Stars and Stripes and Maple Syrup. We're now on episode 3 of the podcast. In the time that we've been doing this, we've recorded 3 defeats and 1 draw, so it's not been a good start for us. This week, I'm happy to say we have John Ellington with us. John is the secretary for the Supporters Association for the board member. So, John, thank you very much for coming in.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Gavin.
So John is a legend in his own lunchtime for anyone who's familiar with the runnings of NASA, especially if you're in the Northeast and you've happened to go out to his house for one of his events. So, John, you're out in Philadelphia in Reading. It's an hour and a half north of Philly.
We're probably 45 miles, a little bit west.
Okay. Shows how much I know on my geography. All I know is I came in from Jersey. So
you came in at an angle. That's right. Yeah.
So what got you supporting Sunderland?
Well, it's sort of a fluke, I suppose. When the premier game started showing in the United States back in, I think it was 2013, I would come down every Sunday morning or Saturday morning. And I had, at the time, 4 kids living at the house. And my youngest kid would come sit on the couch with me and we would watch a different match every Saturday. And and you know me, Gavin, I'm a bit of pain in the butt. I don't know how my wife puts up with me, but I would run around the whole weekend telling everybody, being a smart aleck, that Tottenham was my favorite club. We love the Hotspurs, and this would go on and on and on. And I would beat a dead horse. So one Saturday morning is when the derby came on, and the announcer said, "This is the greatest rivalry in English football." And I thought, well, this is interesting. They haven't said anything like this, in prior matches. So I immediately got on the laptop and started drilling down into the history of the derby, and didn't really pay much attention to the first 15 or 20 minutes because I'm reading about Newcastle and I'm reading about Sunderland, the history of, the Geordies and the supporting the king and so on and so forth. And by the 15, 20 minutes into it, I'm completely hooked on Sunderland as a town. And I'm more hooked on Sunderland as a supporters group because I'm reading all these stories about the greatest supporters, in English football. And I was hooked after that. I don't think I've missed more than 2 or 3 matches, either through Nick Barnes on the BBC or through the SAFC platform or through the Premier League when we were up in years, because I just became immediately hooked based on the people and the fans.
Just lucky then that you weren't watching Birmingham versus Aston Villa, otherwise we'd never be having the conversation.
Fate would have it. Isn't that funny though? And I can't say, Gavin, I've been occasionally disappointed with the football, but I've never been disappointed with the fans. And meeting a guy like you and knowing you for years has just been, just a real pleasure for me. And I mean that sincerely.
So for those of you watching, John really is the kindest person on the planet. All right, so we've got a lot to talk about. It's been an interesting week. Before we start, we did have match predictions from Kev last week. They both tanked. He had us beating Cheltenham 2-0 and then winning 3-0 yesterday. Obviously, neither of those came off. We won't mention the fact that I sucked as well at that. But before we go today, we'll get your predictions for the Milton Keynes game next week. But let's start off with that Cheltenham match. Managerless again. So we had Dodds and Proctor taking the team, and what were your thoughts?
Well, I have to tell you, I had a certain, because you and I briefly talked about where we were going with the podcast today, and I had certain thoughts about the match, the Cheltenham match, and then the match yesterday, and it all changed drastically for me when I saw the interview post-match with Alex Neil, where he said, this basically, I'm paraphrasing, we've all seen it. This is a mess. We have young people that have no legs. We have senior people that are not match fit. And if I'm reading between the lines, we could be in big trouble. So when I saw the Cheltenham match, I thought, well, you know what? It's just Dodds is not comfortable. They're rudderless. They need a captain. They need somebody to come in and take the bull by the horns. And I thought the same thing yesterday, and now I'm not so sure. I'm just not sure.
So let's cover the Cheltenham game first.
Okay.
Because they were 2 different games with 2 different performances, and then we shoehorned a managerial appointment in between the 2. So we were rudderless against Cheltenham. I think we were lucky to go 1-0 up when Pridge hit that peach of a free kick. And then it just didn't come out in the second half. Now, I don't know how you can start two wingers, which we did, and not put the ball in the box effectively for the league's leading scorer. I mean, and the long ball up to Stewart from the back wasn't working. He wasn't winning any of those headers. And nobody on the bench and nobody on the pitch kind of turned around to each other and said, look, guys, this isn't working. We can't hoof it up to Stewart like he's some Niall Quinn reincarnate.
Right.
We don't have anybody running off him to win the ball for him. They were all sitting a little bit too deep.
But was it because they were just all really tired? And that was kind of my question. I was going back to what I said, I don't know what to think of it now. Because in my mind, it was, my gosh, get the ball to Stewart. What's going on? Why aren't we pushing further down the field? And today I'm like, maybe everybody just needed a nap. I'm really confused about that performance. Other than it was bad.
I mean, it was terrible. But if you look at the lineup that started, we made multiple changes from the team that had got beaten at the weekend.
It was 5, right? No.
Yeah. So Jaku came in, Clark came in, Matete came in, Hume came in on the right so we had 4 different starters. So they were all fresh.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Clark, Jaku, and Hume are going to be rusty because they haven't played. And obviously, it's the first game Matete played for us from the start. So you could understand some rustiness. And yeah, look, Doyle's been played, has run into the ground. Serkin's run into the ground.
Yeah.
Pritchard has played a lot of games. Stewart's hardly missed a game. The team's knackered. They really are. And I could see that in the legs. The Christmas of passing wasn't there. The forward runs weren't there. The ball was being played behind the players, and this is something that I picked up on the podcast with both Kev and Sean on the first one. That the passing was terrible. I mean, as a kid learning to play football, you're told to pass into the space where the player is going to be.
Right.
And time again, against Bolton, against Cheltenham, against who's else? Doncaster, the passing has just not been up to scratch.
Oftentimes backwards, like to the back.
Yeah.
Of it. Yeah.
And look, I'm gonna be honest. I like to see Chris passing, but this slow, monotonous, almost monotonal kind of like goes from keeper to Doyle to Serkin to Doyle to Bath to Doyle to Bath, hoofed it up to and then like there's just no rhyme or reason for the way we've been playing the last month. If you go back to the Bolton game, like we didn't show up and we just looked devoid of any kind of idea.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you. I didn't play football growing up. I played American football, and you obviously played. Can you attribute those weak passes to behind the player to legs? Is that like what causes that back pass, that backwards? Because I noticed that too. Like I said, I'm more of a fan of to be entertained by the marvelous physicality of football. I love that. But I noticed that exactly what you said, that it was time and time again, 2 or 3 feet back behind them. What causes that?
So yeah, look, I mean, tired legs are going to do that to you. You're not going to be able to, and being physically tired as well, that mental ability to put the ball where it needs to be, to have the vision to see where it is. But you shouldn't be starting a game like that. I could see it if it was wearing on towards the end of each half and they were getting a bit leggy. But I think the surfaces that we're playing on don't help, especially at the Stadium of Light. We played too many games in December and January. We didn't call games off where we probably should have. And we're paying for it now. And I think you'll find Wigan will pay for it in March and April when the bill's up on them. Obviously, the season ends at the end of April this year, so hopefully it catches up with them before it's too late for us. I mean, honestly, I think after the Cheltenham defeat, it was too late for us. I think that was goodbye to any real chance of automatic promotion. But the thing that's annoyed me most at Cheltenham, were threefold, and I'm looking at my notes because it was a couple of days ago. So we didn't come out in the second half,
Right.
and the second they equalized, heads dropped, and I haven't seen the life taken out of a Sunderland team that badly since the John O'Shea days. Everyone talks about what a great leader John O'Shea was, what a great defender John O'Shea was. But the thing that I remember more about John O'Shea than anything else is how quick he was to shift blame amongst other players and how much his head dropped more than any other player when we conceded. Then you look at the substitutions we made. And the fact that you bring Defoe and Roberts on at the end of the Cheltenham game, both looked lively, but they were given far too little time to make an impact on the game.
Right.
And so for me, it was just the wrong people taking the game as far as Dodds and Proctor are concerned. Neither of them were ready in their career to do that. I think too many players hid behind tired legs. And it was just not enough players turned up.
Well, that's for sure. And I noticed too after the equalizer, heads down and shoulders really slumped. I mean, to the point where if you're watching it on television and you notice that, it's pretty apparent. So
I think the worst thing about it was the fact that you had Wigan getting beat off Sheffield Wednesday. You had MK Dons drew at Fleetwood. And it was an opportunity for Sunderland to really make a statement.
Yeah.
We were 1-0 up at the break. It was a case of, okay, let's consolidate what we got, maybe get a second goal in the second half and really push on. And in typical Sunderland form, they tanked.
The last three games should have been an opportunity for a good opportunity for 9 points.
Should have been.
Yes.
I think when I sat down with Sean after the Bolton game, we looked at the 5 games we have in February.
Yeah.
And I saw Wimbledon, Cheltenham, who was the other team? And Doncaster as 9 points.
Yeah.
I figured that with MK Dons at home coming up on Saturday, we'd have 12 points going in the Wigan game. I figured Wigan would have a tough run of fixtures, and it's proving to be a tough run of fixtures for them. Even though they got the win against Charlton yesterday. But I figured that we'd switch over them up by the end of the month. But now, I'm not so sure.
No, I'm not either.
So that's the Cheltenham game, completely devoid of leadership in the squad, and leadership on the bench. And it showed for 90 minutes.
Yeah. And one thing I will tell you, the whole leadership thing is Bath, I kind of was hoping he would show up in that leadership role in Cheltenham, and maybe you saw it, I just didn't see it.
But so when he came in, like, I defy many Sunderland fans to have known who he is beforehand.
No.
Unless you're right into the Championship football, he wasn't somebody that was on the radar. He wasn't somebody, but all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh, he's going to give us the leadership that we need. He's a solid defender. We're going up with Bath in the back." And I'm like, I know nothing about him. He's not really playing for Stoke. Is he really an upgrade on Flanagan? Is he going to be that next step? And he came in and had a great debut, but has done nothing since. And obviously injured yesterday against Wimbledon. But when you look at the way that Johnson lined the squad up with we don't have any one captain. Well, other than Evans was the club captain, but we have a group of leaders. Well, I mean,
5, right?
Yeah, but with the best will in the world, footballers aren't the brightest group of guys. For the most part, sportsmen are not the most intelligent people. And so you throw something like 5 leaders at a group of third-tier professionals, and it's going to confuse the shit out of them.
Right.
And I think it did. I think players were too scared to stamp their authority on the club, on the team, on the goings on the pitch. And ultimately, that's what cost Johnson his job. He had too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And as a result, there was nothing getting done. It was like watching middle management in the NHS. So
totally agree. You can't run a club with 5 captains. Makes no sense.
no. So that was Cheltenham. It was a shit show from start to finish. Definitely one of the worst performances of the season. I'm not one of those guys who's going to go, oh, worst result in our history, because there have been worse results. But definitely the club is not doing itself any favors with the fans right now. So that was Tuesday. Everyone was keen about bringing Keno in.
Yep.
I voiced my opposition to Keane as manager, both with Sean after Bolton and again with Kev last week. And it looks like he turned us down. Offer was made, and an offer wasn't accepted. So Thursday morning, Twitter was in uproar. Sunderland, Facebook, it was all conspiracy theory, blaming Methven and Donald and how they were running the interviews, and that's why King wasn't manager. Then you have that. I'm going to be blunt and call him a shit stain of a man in William's story, saying that we should have been paying him the 50,000 a week that he wanted. Like, who makes 50 grand a week in League One? I don't care who you are. But at the end of the day, we didn't get Roy Keane. I'm quite happy with the fact that we don't have Roy Keane as our manager right now. I think he would have been a poor decision. But that left the decision on Friday morning is it Grant McCann, is it Alex Neil, or is it a third person that's yet unnamed? And the club went with Alex Neil. So what were your thoughts on that appointment?
So I have to tell you, I always am envious of like a guy like you. You know, you have a longer history with football, and things come to you very quickly. So I have to sort of learn on the fly. And I started reading about Roy Keane. I loved what he did. I love the fact that he had leadership. I did, when Alex Neil was appointed, I just started having to go down, Google and look at old interviews. And from what I saw, I was very impressed. I think he's more of a quiet motivator, but I think he runs a tight ship. I think he is going to be the boss, and he's going to be the leader.
I think you could be right. I think like our last manager, he got into management very young. Again, I had to do some reading up on this one because I wasn't 100% sure of his early days. But 31, when he became player manager at Hamilton Academicals, got them promoted to the Scots Premier League before Norwich came knocking. Got Norwich promoted up to the Premier League, and he's freely admitted that his recruitment in the Premiership is what tanked him. He didn't really spend the money wisely, or as wisely as he could have. And Norwich were relegated after a season. And then they struggled in that season when he got sacked as Norwich manager. Preston didn't really set the world on fire, but by all accounts, he wasn't really given the support that he was offered when the job was put to him. So Preston fans don't have a bad word to say about him, really.
I saw that on Twitter. There was a lot of very positive things from the Preston fans. A lot.
So yeah, I think the guys is a solid championship level manager. I think the fact that he's been prepared to take a drop down to League One to come to us speaks volumes for the club itself.
100%. Yeah.
But again, I don't know what to expect. I mean, I remember watching that Norwich team that he had, and they played some really nice football. But I don't know if playing really nice football works at this level. I think this is more a results-driven than performance-driven league. And I hopefully it's not too late. I don't say he's going automatic. I think he can get us into the playoffs. I don't think we'll have much of a problem getting into the playoffs. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks.
I try to be really positive, even in the darkest days. And I hate to say this, but I'm not 100% sure, unless something fundamentally changes in people's heads, and I'm not completely convinced we're going to make the playoffs.
That's grim.
I know. I'm not sure. I'm not. I wanted to get some, and again, maybe things will be different after a match or two, but I just don't know. And I never thought I'd say that, especially this season, especially at the beginning of what the new year would, when we were at the top of the table, but I'm not sure. I'm going to still watch, but I'm not sure.
I don't think we have that tough a run in. I mean, we've got Rotherham to play still. We've got MK Dons and Wigan coming up almost back-to-back weekends. So next, was it the 19th? So next Saturday we have MK Dons. Following Saturday we have Wigan. And then we're away at Burton in between those two games. So I think those 3 games, 6 points is needed. I think we need to beat with MK Dons at home. Actually, we're at home to Burton, so I think we need to win that one as well, which would set us up nicely. And if we can get a point at Wigan, I'd be happy with a point at Wigan.
Sure.
But then it's a little bit of an easier kind of a run in. But since when has Sunderland ever done easy?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I thought if they didn't really show up for the last 3 like I hope they would. So I don't know what to believe.
I do like the fact that we don't have a midweek game this week.
Yeah.
The fact that he's going to have a week with the players. The fact that they're going to be able to work on things on the training ground. Again, the whole recruitment process at the club is supposed to be so that managers are interchangeable. So one manager leaves, another manager pops in, similar style of play, because it's the ethos of the club of how the game's played, and this should be seamless. I think he needs to tighten us up at the back, and I think he'll be able to do that. With a week of no football, hopefully Bath can come back full strength. Doyle is and Sir can get some rest, because that's where we are. We build up from the back, so that's what we need more than anything, is to have our defense ready to go against MK Dons.
Well, just earlier today, and I know you saw this, it was announced that Bath had rolled his ankle and has a bad ankle. So we'll see how that plays out.
I hadn't seen that. Today was all about rugby for me. Today it was Six Nations England, so I hadn't looked at any football. And I tend to take a day off of not looking at Twitter or things like that. So I try to not do that. So
it was apparently rolled ankle, swollen badly, and we're not afraid to look into the free agent market for some help.
Well, they said that they were looking at the free agent market, but there's not much out there. There really isn't.
So yeah. So overall, I think it's, you know what, it is what we have, and we're going to plug forward. And I hope there's some fundamental changes, both physically and mentally, with the next team that shows up on the pitch.
So I think overall, I think you're right. I think that overall it's a relatively positive signing, getting Neil as a manager. Definitely prefer him over McCann if we were choosing between the two. And so let's talk about the £100 gorilla in the room, and that's the way the club handled the announcements. And a lot of Twitter is complaining about transparency and updating. I don't happen to agree with most of the fans on this one. I was like, look, we're not shareholders. We're not entitled to information that the club doesn't want to give out. I think they dropped the ball in letting Neil be seen at Durham train station in his Sunderland tracksuit. Before the official announcement. I just think that was a little bit amateurish.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't care. Like I got bored of watching the internet wank itself into a frothy mess over the potential Roy Keane signing as manager, and then them all looked like lemons jumping off cliffs when he decided to reject us. So for me, I think Sky Sports and the sports media and journalism in general kind of pushes unrealistic expectations of clubs. So it's a case of, look, if I'm going through the interview process, I don't mind having Philly or whoever it is outside the club said, oh, we've got McCann and Neil and Keane have been in for interviews today. We've got Jimmy down the road who does the under-9s. He's coming in tomorrow, and then we'll do second round. But just the overreaction and general hysteria from fans has just been a little bit over the top recently, I think.
Well, I have to tell you, I agree with you that really the club owes no explanations as to what they're doing. The one thing that you hit the nail on the head, the photograph at the train station in Durham was not a good look for a club as big as Sunderland is. I mean, for a club that drew 38-3 at the last home match to have that was embarrassing. And I'm sure hindsight is 2020, but the club could have gotten a lot of extra mileage going in the morning. We've hired Alex Neil. We'll have a full release later. He's knowing he needs to roll up his sleeves and get the job done. He's now working on training this morning with the lads, and he'll be there. Something you could have thrown something out there that.
I mean, look, the club's social media savvy. They are. They know what they're doing. So the fact that Neil was at the Academy of Light on Friday taking training before taking the train from Durham down to
Right.
London for the Wimbledon game. How hard is it just to have him stop off at the press room? 2 minutes, like, well, look, I'm delighted to be here. Obviously, it's a great club, big fan base. Can't wait to get going. Thanks, guys. I'm off to London.
That's right.
So I think the club dropped the ball there. But again, I still say that the reaction from the fans has been embarrassing, to say the least.
Well, there's a lot of other things to worry about other than that at this point.
Yeah, most of them are now worried about the 5% stakeholding that Methven has in the club, but that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
So with the team down in London, and Neil joining them there, we had Wimbledon yesterday.
Yep.
Should have been a 3-point banker given Wimbledon's form. They hadn't won since December. Neil hadn't lost, I hadn't failed to win a first game in charge of a club in his managerial career. So enter Sunderland.
Yeah.
And they did the most Sunderland-y thing that a Sunderland team could ever Sunderland, and failed to get 3 points. So where did it go wrong yesterday?
Well, I'm going to dovetail back to what I said initially. I think it dovetailed, and there is a lack of player ability, and things just sort of fell apart. And again, I think I don't know if it's legginess or what, but it fell apart because of ability. It didn't fall apart because of lack of support. I don't think it fell apart because of it's a good lineup on paper. It's
shit on grass.
Yeah, it really, and I looked at some of the stats, and we had like 60% possession and very few shots on goal. I mean, I think the official count is 1. That's just unacceptable. And that's one reason, like a guy like you who's played, why aren't we getting that ball down in the last third? Like, I don't know what's going on. We get to a certain point, have the ball, pass it back, have the ball, pass it back, and then it just sort of falls apart. And you don't win matches on possession time. I know that. But I think it's more the same. The last 3 matches to me have been very, very similar.
No, and that's it. I mean, you look at the lineup that we started with yesterday. Neil made changes from the team that had got beat at Doncaster. Brought Dan Neil back into the game, and he had he's not fit. He's played way too much football. It's his first full season as a Sunderland player. So he wasn't ready to play yesterday, but probably told the manager he was good to go. And I just couldn't understand the way he lined up yesterday. For me, it would have been drop Pritchard back into that Dan Neil place, which would have been the advanced of the central 3 midfield players, and then have Diaku or Roberts out on the right, and then Clark out on the left, and that would have given you 2 threats going forward from the wings. So you have your wing outlets. And then with Pritchard in a more central role, it would allow him to get in the ball a lot more and be able to spot those runs from the wingers and then any moves that Stewart made. And then you'd have had Matete and Winchester holding in the center of midfield. I like the fact that he starts a 4. I like a back 4. I always have done. And I got a lot of time for Circuit and Doyle. Wright came back from injury and didn't look great, but was solid enough. And then Hume, I thought, was a threat going forward. But again, every time Wimbledon moved forward, I was kind of a little bit nervy.
Yeah.
And I just think we started slow again yesterday. To your point, I don't think it's a lack of ability. I think it's a lack of freshness, because these players that are playing now, with the exception of Clark and Matete, were putting in great performances for us in December and November.
Yep.
So I think it's just the fact that they're leggy, the fact that they've played too much football for this time of the season. I don't know how many starts they've got, but players like Neil and Stewart and Doyle have played pretty much all the games this season.
That's right.
So we definitely need to be able to freshen it up. But I think you go back to what Neil said in his press conference yesterday. You either have young kids in their first season like Sirkin, Doyle, Neil, Clark, or you have professionals who haven't played that much football. Wright hasn't played that much. Mateta's just come into the club. Winchester's been in and out. So it's an uncomfortable mix, and I think it showed yesterday. Like I said, they started lethargically the first 7 or 8 minutes. They just looked all at sea. Then they started to get control of the game, and we had a good 10-minute spell until the penalty. And look, with the best will in the world, there's no way that's a penalty.
Right.
The ball gets hooked in, and yeah, okay, look, it's hit his arm, but his arm wasn't in an unnatural position. The referee couldn't call it from his position if you look at his line of sight. And the way the sun was shining, and I was surprised the linesman could see it, because the linesman was doing this at every corner that they got. And so I was shocked and disappointed by that. But then that's League One football for you. Referees are, how can we put this nicely? I try not to curse because I curse too much. Inconsistent. They're consistently inconsistent, I think, is the best way to describe the referees at this level. So then you saw heads drop, and Wimbledon were on top for a while. And if it hadn't been for a couple of good saves from Patterson yesterday, he pulled a couple of really good saves out. One at 1-0 to save us from going 2-0 down, and then another after Pritchard had scored to. There was that drive going in the top right-hand corner. That if he hadn't got his hands to, we'd have been 3-1 down, and we'd have been out and looking at forward feet in the bounce.
And I have to tell you that Patterson save on the shot that made it 2-0 was, I thought, outstanding. I thought that was really good, from some good footballing right there. I thought that was really, and you know what, I wondered, I was hoping that would kind of give us a lift after that. And to what yours, I don't. The lifts, if they were, they were few and far between yesterday. You get the 1 point right before half, and I can't see that it carried over into the second half.
No, and I agree with you. I think if you have a leader on the pitch yesterday, I think when they make the save at 1-0, that's when a leader, a Lee Carter, even a John O'Shea, for as much as like, if you look at the captains down the line, the years, it's where they would have kind of been pumping the team up, like, look, we've got away with one here. Let's go on and let's get back into this game.
Let me ask you a question. Can I ask you?
Yeah.
All right. So I actually liked him, but do you think we're really missing Max Power?
No.
For the leadership part?
No.
Okay.
Look, Power was okay, but he didn't really bring anything extra. Like, would I have Power in ahead of Evans? Yeah, but I think Evans brings very little to the game. He's no great pass with the ball. He's got no pace. He's injury prone. He doesn't seem to be a natural leader. And I thought we looked weaker with him in the team yesterday.
Okay.
After substitutions.
But I just wanted I just remember always watching with a lot of pride is the way Power handled himself trying to get the troops all lined up. I thought he did a good job of that. I liked him for that.
He was a bit of a headless chicken for me. I think he was a bundle of energy, and I think we're missing that energy in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
But I wasn't unhappy when he left.
Okay, fair enough.
And I wouldn't have him back.
And again, we didn't have the five. This goes back to the beginning of the season where you have the 5 co-captains nonsense. And at the time, a lot of people, especially the NASA group, and I think you were one of them, a lot of people was like, this is a really bad idea. So when those 5 were announced, people, I think, were genuinely concerned. It just didn't start rearing its ugly head till people started getting tired and leggy, et cetera, et cetera.
I think they were looking at the American football model. If you look at the time cost at any American football game, you have multiple captains going up, and obviously the team captain, the gold C guy, is the one who calls the coin toss. I think it's great when you have like positional captains, but I think because this is a different game and it's like it's flows back and forth. You need one guy right there who if you're not picking your game or playing your game right is going to be screaming you to kind of do it. And it just looks as though that none of them are prepared to kind of take that mantle to be the yeller. Like and you look at I think it was telling yesterday that if I remember right, when Evans came on the pitch, he didn't take the captain's armband.
I you know what, we should know. I don't know the answer to that.
It was something that I was watching because it was something I was interested to see if he would. But I don't remember him picking up the captain's armband when.
If he did, it'd make a noticeable difference.
But then again, I couldn't tell you who was captain at the kickoff yesterday.
That's right, me either. I know Bailey Wright.
Bailey Wright. So yeah, Wright was on for the full game. I didn't notice him giving up the captain's armband yesterday. Okay. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe Neil doesn't like the way that we've been rudderless as far as leadership is concerned. So
yeah, maybe. I think he recognizes that already. So that's good.
So one thing he does recognize, and one thing I was happy with yesterday, is the fact that he made substitutions quite early. 60-minute mark, he brought on who did he bring on? He brought on
at 60, he brought on Evan. Did he bring in Evans first, and then Defoe Roberts?
Yeah, he brought on Defoe and Evans. And then 10 minutes later, so 62 minutes, Defoe and Evans came on. Again, I wouldn't have brought Evans on. I don't rate him. I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to be in the team. And then 10 minutes later, he brought on Roberts. And again, Roberts was a handful. He looks lively, a little bit naive for his booking. But again, given that everybody got booked yesterday, it really doesn't really make much of a difference. But yeah, so second half, refereeing was awful. The referee lost the game and went card happy. I just hope he has enough cards left to give his wife one tomorrow. 13 cards he issued yesterday in what wasn't a dirty or ill-tempered game.
Right.
So, but then you look at Roberts, who threw his legs out in the hope of getting a penalty and deserved his booking for that. Defoe got booked for it was just
silly.
I think at times referees have to remember that not every foul is necessarily a booking. And I think referees too quick to go at the book, which irritates me. Mm-hmm. But then you have situations where, let me think, what was it? There was a foul. It wasn't the Sunderland game yesterday. I was watching highlights on, I think it was the QPR game, and I watched a QPR player get fouled about 20 yards out, and the winger sprinted across the width of the pitch to remonstrate with their referee. And then they all crowded the referee. And I'm like, referees need to stamp that out. They're the only people who can.
Right.
So you start booking for dissent again, because I haven't seen a booking for dissent in such a long time. Mm-hmm. And you stamp the law down quickly. Look, captain talks to me. If you come in and yell at me, you're getting booked. I'm a little bit old school. I watch the rugby guys with the respect they have for the referee and the fact that they do what they're told, and there's not all this stupid stuff that you get with football. But yeah, terrible referee yesterday. But he was terrible for us the last time he refereed. Don't have a good history with him, so hopefully we won't see him again.
Terrible yesterday. Yeah, terrible for both sides. Ruined the tempo of the game. Made it non-entertaining. Even the play, it was bad from the get-go on the refereeing, and it just didn't get any better. It wasn't a fun match to watch yesterday.
No, it definitely wasn't fun to watch. In fact, it's been a while since the Sunderland game was fun to watch. But we have another one coming up on Saturday, and it's going to be a tough one this weekend. We've got Wigan coming up. Sorry, not Wigan coming up. We've got MK Dons, who are 2 points ahead of us in the table. Better goal difference than us. It's a game we really have to win. They're not losing games. They've played 16 away from home, MK Dons, this year. They've won 8 of them. The way this team's going, I can see them winning a 9th.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about this weekend's match. I don't know what can be fixed in a week. That's the big question mark. What can be fixed in a week? Because we're spiraling. And I noticed, I saw this morning, Alex Pritchard was interviewed and he said, well, thank goodness we finally stopped the rot. We got a point. And I said, as I'm listening to that, I appreciate what he had to say, Gavin, but I don't feel like we stopped the rot with a 1-1 tie at Wimbledon.
No, it's like, okay, look, I nicked the artery, I've clamped the artery, but I'm still bleeding out slowly. It's like, no, they didn't stop the rot. The performance was, if that was stopping the rot, then we're in trouble. And you might be right, we might not make the playoffs.
I'm hopeful though, but I want to see. I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see what the club looks like second half of the MK match. Like what is it going to look like? What does this week do? What is, fitness levels? How, if training is different, if there's any mentality difference, I think that's going to be very telling for the rest of our season, how we come out of the second half against MK at home. So
who do you play Saturday? If you were picking the lineup, how do you go?
You know what? I don't know, because I would have to see how they look this week in training. I would tell everybody except for probably Ross Stewart and Patterson, you've got to earn your spot this week. And that should be the mentality every week. Isn't that kind of what it is in football? You earn your spot every week. And I'd say those two have to play, and anybody else it's up for. And also the new guy from Fleetwood, Matete, I thought that kid was. I think that kid's just a pleasure to watch from an entertainment standpoint. I don't know that his footwork it's ridiculous. Other than that, Gavin, I think you have to wait and see how things shake out this week, because I don't think anybody should feel safe. I really don't. Pritchard probably, but I don't think anybody should really feel safe.
Now, I think the changes that I would make are the ones that I mentioned earlier. I think I wouldn't have Pritchard out wide right. I'd have him almost as an advanced midfield player behind the striker. You put Roberts out on the right and give Roberts a start with Clark on the left. I think you play Matete, and I guess you give it to Winchester. There's no other real quality in the center of midfield. You rest Neil, you rest Embleton as much as you can. Give them a couple of weeks where they're just making substitute appearances, make them hungry for their starts again, and make them fit for their starts again. The back four I was okay with. I liked Hume at the right back, and I love Sirkin at left back. I don't think Doyle's got any danger of losing his first team start anytime soon.
He might need a break.
He does need a break, and again, I think we said this. I think they all need a break, but the club made the decision back in December, January, that they would try and fulfill fixtures where they could. And as Kev said last week, I definitely think that 3-3 draw at Wickham, with a last minute goal, deflated the club, which we haven't really bounced back from. So
yeah.
So let's take a look. We have the last week I made the bold thing that I would put a $5 on every week for guessing the scores, and then any winnings at the end of the season, and that's including my $5s. So anything that's left over at the end of the season will go to the Bradley Lowry Foundation. So Milton Keynes at home. What's your prediction?
Tough, Gavin. I knew you were going to ask me. I don't think we pull it together in a week. I think we lose 2-1. Sorry, it kills me to say that, Gavin. Kills me. But I think you want me to be honest. And what did you write? 2-1.
I think we'll lose 2-1 as well. MK Dons have been good this season. Obviously, they've been better than us purely on a match-to-match basis. I don't think you recover the confidence
in a week.
Yeah, I think the fans are going to be a little bit flat. I think not having King as manager is going to impact that a lot. I think you'll struggle to hit 30,000 next week.
Let me ask, how painful it was. It was painful for me to say that. I have to be honest with you. How painful was it for you to write that? It stinks, right? I was like,
Nah. I mean, look, I went to my first Sunderland game in '78. My dad took me as a very young boy. I lived outside of Roker Park until I was 7, and I was a season ticket holder from the age of 9. So I've seen a lot of bad football.
yeah.
So for me, I think the fact that I'm in the US now, and the fact that if Sunderland lose, it's done by lunchtime. I'm not around Sunderland fans all day. I can forget a little bit about the result. So it doesn't hurt as much. I think if I'd still been living in Sunderland, writing over 2-1 defeat down would have killed me. But not so much now. I think I'm more realistic with who we are as a club. I just hope that, like, I'll take 2-1 defeat if the performance is a lot better. If we're showing signs of making it right, and knowing that we then got 13 games after MK Dons, 39 points. Yeah, 39 points. I think we got it's what? Where are we in the season now? Is it 46 games this season, and we've played 32. So we got 42 points to play for. Yeah. So if we can get 35 points between now and the end of the season, which would be a big ask, would give us 92.9. It would give us 90 points to end the season.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is we have a very crucial 2 weeks to try to sort of sort things out. But then on the backside of that, as you just said, the clock is ticking. You don't have a whole lot of time to get things pretty and fix things, because the end of April will be here before you know it.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got the next 2 Saturdays are MK Dons and Wigan, who obviously are 2nd and 3rd in the league right now. Then we got Burton, who are 12th, sandwiched in between them. So Burton should be the easier game at home, but it was Burton sent us down to League One 4 years ago.
I'll make one other prediction, Gavin. If we can take 3 off of one of the next 2 matches, we're in the playoffs. If we lose both of them, we're in trouble.
All right. So you're talking about Wigan and MK Dons, or are you talking about MK Dons and Burton?
No, MK Dons it's MK Dons, Wigan's in Burton, right?
No. So it's MK Dons Saturday, Wigan the following Tuesday, and then Burton the following Tuesday, and then Wigan at the end of the month.
That's why I should make predictions, Gavin. I'm half an idiot. So I withdraw all my predictions. There are no predictions. There's nothing certain other than I still remain hopeful. That's the only thing I can tell you I'm certain about.
Well, the one prediction that you have made is that we're going to lose 2-1 next week.
I stick with that one.
I agree with you on that one. It's not one that I enjoy agreeing with, but we'll get back onto my Coral account and we'll get those bets locked in and see what the odds are on those.
And very cool thing that you're doing. That's neat.
Now, John, one thing I want to hit on is International Fans Day. I know from an American perspective, you were a big part of that from our side. I know it's not happening this year. Obviously, it's too late in the season to arrange something like that. But are the hopes that we'll have it going again for next season?
Well, I have to tell you, it's very kind of you to say that. I only just sort of thought about it and sent it over to, and as you know, the BLC over in Sunderland, and they made it it was truly a magnificent event, Gavin. I mean, people were just blown away with what they were able to pull together. I am hearing that they'd actually had a date picked for this year, and then the variants come through, and it just doesn't make any sense. The club, my understanding, is desperately wants to put that back on because of the feedback from the international fans. I don't know if you noticed when in the matches, Frankie is constantly saying from around the world. I mean, you know, we should put a bet on that. I'm sure there's somebody taking a bet on how many times he says that in a broadcast. But I think the club truly recognizes the worldwide fan base, and it was evident by the show they put on for us. So I expect it'll be back next year. I hope, I mean, secretly deep down inside, I hope we can maybe have an AGM in conjunction with that or something interesting to get more people involved. But it was a good crowd, and you and I are going to go next time and have a good time. I know you're
So-
going to be there.
So speaking of AGMs, obviously, I'm a member of the of SAF NASA as a member just these days. You're the organization secretary. Do we know anything about any potential virtual or in-person AGMs for the organization this season?
April the 2nd is going to be directly after the match. And we have secured, I think, a fantastic guest is Simon Pride is going to be our guest and is going to talk a little bit about BBC, Northeast, Sunderland, following football clubs, rabid fans, things like that. So I'm very excited for that. So it's going to be April 2nd, and it should be a good event. We're going to have a raffle. And I will tell you there's something else that's also kind of neat that NASA's doing. And thank you for letting me at least say something really positive about NASA, because it's a wonderful Rebecca Shaw, fantastic leader, just absolutely fantastic. But you, if you can, I can jump back in. You're hosting a trivia night for NASA, and that's coming up in February. So there's lots of neat things planned. Trivia night with Gavin, and then the AGM with Simon Pride. I'm looking forward to both of those. I'm not going to get one question right in your trivia contest.
That trivia night's what, 2 weeks from now? I think that's what you said, the 28th, 27th.
Yeah, and it's you did some during the COVID general knowledge, and I went to 4, 5, 6 of those, and it's fantastic fun. It really is. And you're good at doing. The people that you had participate were fun people. So I'm actually looking forward to that at the end of February, and then really looking forward to the AGM.
I think the little quizzes that I was doing were more the interaction that everybody had, because none of us were going out. We were all sat in the house. So the bullshit and the crack that you have with your friends in the pub, that kind of thing, we were able to recapture online, which made it a lot of fun. And
fantastic. And I think we're going to have a lot of that in February for our Sunderland trivia contest. I think it'll be much of the same, because it is a very, very good group, and we try to get together virtually. And for those people that do listen, Gavin, you know that last year we introduced an associate membership from overseas. So if anybody that's listening to this podcast overseas wants to join as an associate member and be able to participate in all these fun NASA things, we do have that as an option as well. You can go to the website and figure that out.
So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I will put the NASA website information in the text below the video. I should have said at the beginning, like and subscribe for regular information on this one. I made a bit of a boo-boo for next week. As you see above me, that's everyone who's scheduled to go through the rest of the season. I forgot to write the MK Dons game down, so I'll have to run and find out who's my MK Dons guest. But John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the 3rd episode of our Stars and Stripes and Maple Syrup.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And we'll keep this going, and we'll have you back soon, I'm sure.
Well, only when you're really desperate. Have me back on again.
Hey, look, I will give it up to you. It was meant to be Jody this week. Jody, unfortunately, had a scheduling issue and is driving to Texas as we speak. So you were very kind to step in. So we really appreciate that. And yeah, fingers crossed for
it was funny, I've told you this, and you've been so kind to me. I said, Gavin, I have a little bit of hesitation. I'm just a guy that likes the entertainment portion of football. Like I know I don't understand everything, but I know what I like, and I like to be entertained. And you go, oh, well, I'll have you on at the end of the season after Cambridge. And I'm thinking to myself, that's great. We'll be automatic promotion, or we'll be in the playoffs, and everything will be fine. And I come on now. And I might not have been your best guest for this current state of affairs with the Sunderland football team, but I did my best.
I got to be honest. The only one that's worried me so far was the week one was Sean. I know Sean from living in Jersey and going to the pub with him.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised that he kept the cursing. Only one bad curse in 45 minutes. So I was quite happy with that.
Well, thank you for having me. It was really a lot of fun, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, like I said, John, thank you very much for coming today. As I said, we'll put the NASA information in the information below, so it's there for you if you're watching on YouTube. If not, just jump on Facebook, look for SAFC NASA, and you'll find the guys, and they'll answer any questions you can. For me, that's it for this week. We'll see you all again for episode 4 next week. Thank you for tuning in.